Well, I've always been interested in international relations. And when I was in undergrad, there was still a Soviet Union. And it scared me that these two countries could annihilate each other with nuclear weapons. So I began to study how countries would relate in the international system so this wouldn't happen, which led me to the field of international relations. And after there was no more Soviet Union, then I began to be interested in environmental issues and about how we still need to cooperate nation to nation, country to country, in order to deal with big, wicked problems like climate change. So I thought the best way for me to do that and for me to convey that passion to students would be to become a professor and teach it to as many people as I could. Well, I'm hoping that I can get as many students as possible, not only to take Introduction to International Relations to find out more about the wider world, but also to take courses like global security issues and global environmental politics. So they can see that we really have, in the 21st century, some issues to grapple with. And the more educated they are about these issues, the more ways they can think about them, the more knowledge bases they can draw on, the greater chance we have of solving some of this problem and ensuring that the 21st century is peaceful. So I love teaching students. I love coming into a classroom full of students and having everybody be really enthusiastic to learn about this. That's one of the greatest joys of teaching. As far as the research goes, I've had some luck publishing some, I guess you would say, out there stuff. A lot of what I do is very forward-looking, very futuristic in nature. And if I can talk about problems that happen 10 or 20 years in the future, then I can contribute to building that knowledge base that will help us solve it. So I'm very interested in issues like environmental terrorism and climate change and security, and in the security ramifications of geoengineering technologies. These issues, to me, really indicate that we have to work together in order to solve global problems, that there's no way that nations are going to rest on their old ideas of sovereignty and security in the 21st century. We just have a new reality, and we have to accept that and figure out new ways to address problems. Before I became an academic, I worked in the US government in various capacities, and I worked in a couple of think tanks researching a lot of these same issues. And now when I write things based on my own research, I'm very careful to try to phrase it in a way that policymakers will understand, or put it in journals or other types of media that policymakers consume. So now, as a subject matter expert in climate change and security for NATO, I have the opportunity to take what I know and teach it to people who can coordinate the responses between countries. When we think of national security, we tend to think of armed forces and the traditional methods of war, but climate change is also a security threat. And so for the NATO member states, we can make sure that they are all working from the same playbook in coordinating our response. This strengthens not only NATO as a unit, but it helps us work together to combat climate change.